All right, let's begin. Enough fooling around. Welcome. Welcome to session number 171 of Kevin Reads A Course in Miracles. Simple enough. All right, it's our little study group. And today we are still in chapter 21, entitled Reason and Perception. All right, and this is section 7, Roman numeral 7, entitled The Last Unanswered Question. All righty then. Just to mark this in the march of time, in the progress of history, 24 hours ago, about a day ago, the Vietnamese Buddhist Thich Nhat Hanh passed on. All right, he was a shining example of using the form to teach peace. He was a teacher of peace, and I just wanted to recognize him and thank him for his message. All right, that being said, all right, I guess just to mark time, it doesn't matter what day it is. Okay. Session number 171, section 7, The Last Unanswered Question. Paragraph 1. Do you not see that all your misery comes from the strange belief that you are powerless? Being helpless is the course of sin. Helplessness is sin's condition, the one requirement that it demands to be believed. Only the helpless could believe in it. Enormity has no appeal save to the little, and only those who first believe that they are little could see attraction there. Treachery to the Son of God is the defense of those who do not identify with him. And you are for him or against him. Either you love him or attack him, protect his unity, or see him shattered and slain by your attack. Excuse me. So, saying the same things over and over again in different words, Jesus asks us a question: do you not see that all your misery comes from the strange belief that you are powerless? Right. It's that strange belief that you are separated from your source. That strange belief that you are here as an individual and you're powerless. You are subject to the powers that be, as they say. And then he goes on, he says, being helpless is the cost of sin. Seeing yourself as powerless is the price you pay for believing that you're separated from your source, from believing that you're separated from God. All right? And this helplessness is the condition of the separation. Helplessness is sin's condition, he says. I can't help it. It wasn't my fault. I'm a victim. I'm helpless. He says it's sin's condition. It's the one requirement that it demands to be believed. Right? So that when you believe you're separated, you also have to believe that you're helpless. It's not your fault. You had no power over this. Okay? I have no control over it. It wasn't my fault. I'd like to maintain my individuality, but it's not my fault. Okay? So only helplessness could believe in it. All right? that separation. It says, enormity has no appeal except to the little, save to the little. All right. So enormity, we like big things. We like to be big. We like to have big bank accounts and all kinds of big things. And, we like big mountains and big skies and things like that. But only that has an appeal to people who have contrast. All right? And they see themselves in contrast to the enormity. All right? I wish I was big. All right? So he says, and those who first believe that they are little could see attraction there. Okay, so first you have to see that you believe that you're little. Right? You've lost your contact with enormity, with how big you really are. Treachery to the Son of God is the defense of those who do not identify with him. And you are for him or against him. All right? Either you love him or attack him. You protect his unity, or you see him shattered and slain by your attack. So poetic or metaphor, all right? Because in the reality, you are the Son of God, all right? And so you don't believe that, so you're either for that, you either believe it or not, is what he's saying, all right? And either you love him or you attack him. You protect the unity, or you see him shattered and slain. Either you protect the unity of heaven, or you see yourself as shattered and slain. You see heaven as shattered, and you feel bad about it because you did it. All right, even though you didn't do it. But it's very serious when you believe that. All right, that's what we're trying to undo, that belief. Right? That's the process of this book. We're trying to undo that belief that I shattered heaven. I turned my back on it. All right? The Son of God is shattered. All right? Paragraph 2. Nobody believes the Son of God is powerless, and those who see themselves as hopeless must believe they're not the Son of God. What can they be except his enemy? And what can they do but envy him his power, and by their envy make themselves afraid of it? Right? These are the dark ones, silent and afraid, alone and not communicating. Fearful the power of the Son of God will strike them dead, and raising up their helplessness against him. Right? They join the army of the powerless to wage their war of vengeance, bitterness, and spite on him, to make him one with them. Because they do not know that they are one with him, they know not whom they hate. They are indeed a sorry army, each one likely to attack his brother or turn upon himself, as to remember that they thought they had a common cause. Excuse me. All right. So he's telling us that in this duality, in this milieu of duality, we think the Son of God, and we'll take, for example, Jesus, we always refer to him as the Son of God, all right? He says, so nobody thinks he's powerless. Right? All those stories came down about how powerful he was. All right? So those who think they're helpless, all right, they must believe that that's not who they are. I'm not the Son of God. I'm helpless. So we're denying who we are. Okay? And that's the origin of the world, All right, we deny who we are. We deny the oneness. All right, and so we land here, and we try to keep proving it. All right, we're proving that we're not the Son of God. So, and what can they be if they're not Son of God? He says, what can you be except His enemy? All right, because that's the way this world works. All right, you have to be suspicious of the other, at the very least. All right, so you have to be ready. All right, if you're suspicious of someone, they're your enemy, really, because you believe that they're liable to do something to you. And so he says, what else can you do except envy the power that the Son of God has, all right? You'd be jealous of it, and then you think He's going to do something to you with it, all right? He's going to zap you. And their envy makes themselves afraid of the power. All right? You become just afraid. You become afraid of approaching Jesus as your friend, as your brother. All right? And he said, so these are the dark ones. You know, he's using this poetic imagery. All right? Because as in the ego thought system, we're all the dark ones. We've all turned our back on the light, so to speak. Right? These are the dark ones, silent and afraid. Right? And for the most part, I believe most people are afraid quietly. All right? And even if you're talking about your fears and everything, there's still an inadequate amount. You're still not 100% expressing yourself. All right? He says these are the dark ones. They're silent and afraid. They're alone and not communicating. And when he says not communicating, he's talking about communicating with the oneness, with God, with the memory of who you are. All right? You're cut off from that. You've cut yourself off from that communication. And that's why you're alone, and you feel alone, and you're fearful. All right, once again, as he says in other parts, you're uncertain, you roam the earth, uncertain, lonely, and in constant fear. All right, period, as they say. Oh, what is this expression now? Full stop. Okay. So these are the dark ones. All right? They don't communicate. They're fearful. The power of the Son of God will strike them dead. And raising up their helplessness against them. They join the army of the powerless to wage their war of vengeance, bitterness, and spite upon Him. All right? So this war that we wage, the dark ones, that's everything that we do in this world to prove that we're not the Son of God. Everything that proves that we're separated from God. All right? There's very beautiful, powerful poetry and poetic images and metaphors, but the message is always there. All right? This war, all right, this war of vengeance and bitterness and spite is all the things that we do in the world to prove that we're separated from God. All right? So we wage this war against the Son of God to make Him one with them. All right? To convince the Son of God that He's one with them, that He is separated. Okay? Because they do not know that they are one with Him. We have forgotten that. All right? Because they do not know that they are one with Him, They know not whom they hate. Right? They don't realize. You know, just what pops up in my head is that the words they assigned to Jesus on the cross, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. They don't realize what they're doing. They know not who they hate. Right? And that goes for if you hate yourself. You can always project guilt and everything onto yourself. Right? Because you don't know who you are. You don't realize how glorious you truly are. Right? Not in this body, not in this form, but beyond this, beyond the form. You are the glorious oneness. Right? You are the glorious oneness. Now I'm just remembering something I saw, or somebody posted about Thich Nhat Hanh. He said, to paraphrase, it was so beautiful what he said. I don't want to mess it up too bad. But he said, but I'm not really gone. He says, you're going to see me in the leaf. You're going to hear me in the bird. All right? You're going to see me in nature. When you're walking around, you'll see me everywhere in everything. If you just stop and look. All right? He's talking about passing into the oneness, right? And he's not separated from us, right? And this was the message that he was giving as he used the form to get around and teach people, right? Because we don't know that we are one. And because we don't know that, right, and we don't know who to hate, right, he says they are indeed a sorry army. Each one is likely to attack his brother or turn upon himself, as to remember that they thought they had a common cause. Right? So this existence in the ego thought system is really crazy. Because it never stops projecting guilt, never stops attacking, in other words. It always finds somebody else or some other thing to attack. And if it can't at the moment, it attacks the self. It doesn't matter. Right? And it's exactly the first word in the third paragraph. Frantic. Frantic and loud and strong the dark ones seem to be. Yet they know not their enemy, except they hate him. In hatred they have come together, but have not joined each other. For had they done so, hatred would be impossible. The army of the powerless must be disbanded in the presence of strength. Those who are strong are never treacherous, because they have no need to dream of power and to act out their dream. How would an army act in dreams? Anyway at all. It could be seen attacking anyone with anything. Dreams have no reason in them. A flower turns into a poisoned spear, a child becomes a giant, and a mouse roars like a lion. And love is turned to hate as easily. This is no army, but a madhouse. What seems to be a planned attack is bedlam. Right? He's telling us this world is frantic and loud, and it's bedlam. Right? He says we make these relationships. He says, but you don't really join with one another. I mean, even the groups, right? And especially in the time of this reading here, there's more polarization, there's more separation, and people will side with this group. He says, but you're not really joining. You're attracted to what you think is the power of the hatred. Right? The power of the projection of the guilt onto the other group. Right? He says, but you're not really joining with the people, because if you joined and you realized you were one with them, if you truly believed that, if you truly experienced it, there wouldn't be any hatred, there wouldn't be any projection of guilt. All right? It would be a freaking Woodstock, all right? You know, the idyllic Woodstock, as they, all right? You know, there would just be that peace. All right? He says, but you're not really joined with one another. You only think you are. Right? So he says, this army, and he says they don't even know who they hate. All they know is that they hate him. They don't even know what they hate. Right? He says, so these armies need to be disbanded. Right? And they're not disbanded by going and breaking them up. You know, sending in a more powerful force to break them up. That's not how that army is disbanded. Right? The army of the powerless must be disbanded in the presence of strength. And strength he's talking about is, as they say in the beginning of the chapter, is reason. It's the right mind. It's those who have gone to the right mind and have asked to see correctly. Those who have joined with the memory of who they truly are. Those who have joined with their brother Jesus. Right? That's where the strength is, and that strength disbands the frantic army of those who think they're separated. So that army is disbanded in the presence of strength. Right? The ego is disbanded in the presence of the strength of the right mind. Right? Perception is corrected with the vision of the Holy Spirit. Okay? All righty then. Those who are strong are never treacherous. So when we're in our right mind, we don't, there's no treachery, there's no betrayal, there's no tricks. Right? We don't need that. They don't need to be that because they have no dream of power. Right? There's no dream of domination. Right? There's no need of, I got to get mine before you. There's nothing like that. There's only the realization of peace of mind, of oneness. That's where the strength is. They have no need to dream of power and to act out their dream. Right? How would an army act in dreams? Anyway at all. So in a dream, the army could be seen as attacking anyone, with anyone, anything. And dreams have no reason in them. This is where the metaphor is so consistent. Jesus says that we are in a dream. We are dreaming of exile. We are at home in heaven, dreaming of exile. And once again, he's talking about a dream. He goes, dreams have no reason. Right? There is no right-minded thinking here unless we decide for it, unless we go inside to the stately calm within, as they say, and we are willing to have our perceptions changed. Otherwise, there is no reason in the dreams. All right. Dreams have no reason in them. All right? And now he's, using our sleeping dreams as an example. He says a flower can turn into a poison spear. All right? A little child can become a giant in the dream. All right? A mouse roars like a lion. All right? And love is turned to hate easily. All right? And that's becomes more in our waking experience. All right? Here in this dream, what we think is love can very easily and quickly turn to hate. All right? And that's the, he talks about the special relationships all the time. We convince ourselves that we love this or love that, right? And sooner or later, it doesn't live up to the expectations, let's put it that way, all right? Or something happens and we quickly lose that feeling of love and connection, and we hate it. We hate it. That's the experience in the dream, okay? So, dreams have no reason, all right? And love is turned to hate just as easily. He says, this is no army, this is a madhouse. What seems to be a planned attack is bedlam, all right? So the ego's consistently trying to prove that we're separated from God. Right? That seems to be a planned attack. He says, but it's bedlam. This whole world is bedlam. Right? We can think that the world is very orderly and all that. Jesus is suggesting it could be otherwise. It's bedlam, he says. All right. But what we have to do is look. And look without judgment. Look without fear. Just notice. You're not going to go crazy. You're not going to have your mind blown like a bad acid trip or something. All right. Just little by little, you look. You look. And you ask, help me to see this correctly. So we can disband this army. All right, we can disband this army, this bedlam. We can correct our interpretation of bedlam. All right. So, paragraph 4. The army of the powerless is weak indeed. It has no weapons, and it has no enemy. Yes, it can overrun the world and seek an enemy, but it can never find what is not there. Yes, it can dream it found an enemy, but this will shift even as it attacks, so that it runs at once to find another, and never comes to rest in victory. And as it runs, it turns against itself, thinking it caught a glimpse of the great enemy, who always eludes its murderous attack by turning it to something else. How treacherous does this enemy appear, who changes so it is impossible even to recognize him. All right? I'm that old that I can remember the Keystone Cops, they used to call them. These are old time, I was not privy to going to see movies that had no sound, silent film. But in silent films, there were the Keystone Cops. There was always a group of cops they would run over here and try to fix them. Then they would run over here, and then you see the villain was over there. They'd be running all over the place. Because that's the image that comes up. He's describing the ego, right? So it has no weapons, it has no enemy. It's just making stuff up as it goes along. All right? And yet it can overrun the world and seek an enemy. Right? But it can never find what was not there. Right? And that statement, once again, is a reiteration of the fact that the world does not exist. Right? It just can't find what's not there. Right? Don't let that blow your mind either. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Right? And act normally. Right? But it's funny to have that image of the Keystone Cops running around. Right? But it can never find what is not there. And in paragraph 4, sentence 5, he says, yes, it can dream it found an enemy. All right, so yeah, there, that's the person, you know, he's a dirty so-and-so, and all this. And so we think we found the enemy, right? But even that shifts, all right? Even as we're attacking. So it automatically runs to find another enemy. And it never rests in victory. The ego doesn't rest and say, okay, we found all the enemies. Right? It can't. It has to keep projecting the guilt. It has to keep finding another enemy. Right? And never comes to rest in victory. And as it runs, it turns against itself, thinking it caught a glimpse of the great enemy who always eludes its murderous attack by turning into something else. All right. It never knows where the enemy is until we come inside and we realize that the ego thought system, that thought system of separation, believes that we are the culprit. I am the one who divided heaven. I am the one who separated from God and destroyed the oneness. I am the guilty one. So the ego it catches a quick glimpse of that, but never the full thrust of it. It has to throw it out. Always just throwing it out. So thinking it caught a glimpse of the great enemy who always eludes its murderous attack by turning into something else. How treacherous does this enemy appear? Who changes so it is impossible even to recognize him. All right. So the ego always just trying to get rid of this guilt. Right? Doesn't care where it goes. But then he says in the next paragraph, he says, yet hate must have a target. All right? In another place, I believe it's in the workbook, he says, hate is specific. Right? There can be no faith in sin without an enemy. Right? Yet hate must have a target. There can be no faith in sin without an enemy. Who that believes in sin would dare believe he has no enemy? Could he admit that no one made him powerless? Reason would surely bid him seek no longer what is not there to find. Yet first he must be willing to perceive a world where it is not. It is not necessary that he understand how he can see it, nor should he try. For if he focuses on what he cannot understand, he will but emphasize his helplessness and let sin tell him that his enemy must be himself. But let him only ask himself these questions, which he must decide to have it done for him. All right? So let's hold off on the questions for a second. he says, there can be no faith in sin without an enemy. There can be no faith in the belief in separation without an enemy. Right? I have to be able to project the guilt onto someone. In the beginning, God becomes the enemy. All right? God wouldn't give me special notice. Right? Wouldn't notice my individuality, so I'd never forget you. And I turned my back on the oneness in the Course's mythology. And God becomes the initial enemy, all right? Because now there's a duality, all right? And it's, wonderfully written down in the story of Adam and Eve, all right? God becomes the enemy. And he says, so who that believes in sin would dare believe he has no enemy? So if you believe you're separated from God, how could you possibly believe that you don't have any enemies? Right? Because now I'm on my own here in this world of competition, a vicious competition. Right? How could I have, what do you mean I have no enemies? And now, once again, since it's in my mind, the image of Thich Nhat Hanh rises up. All right? Because I'm of that age. I was a teenager in the Vietnam era. Right? I went from my late teens to my early 20s in the Vietnam era. And the Buddhist monks were very outspoken in Vietnam, all right? And Thich Nhat Hanh was one of these Buddhist monks who insisted on peaceful coexistence, all right? I mean, here we are 50, 60 years later, all right? And he was consistent in that. So and he was a proponent of the oneness, no separation, right? So Jesus is saying, but those of us who believe in separation, how could you believe you have no enemies? All right? Could he admit that no one made him powerless? All right? So if I believe in separation, could I admit that nobody made me powerless, that nothing made me powerless? The world didn't make me powerless. Maybe it was a result of something I thought. Right? He says reason, which is that right-minded thinking again, reason would surely bid him seek no longer what is not there to find. So the right-minded thinking would say, stop looking outside. There's nothing out there. All right? There's nothing out there to blame. So the right-minded thinking would help us with that. All right? Yet in sentence 6, paragraph 5, he says, yet first you have to be willing to perceive a world where it is not. First you have to be willing to have your perceptions changed. All right? Yet first he must be willing to perceive a world where it is not. Right? Where that ability to make you powerful is not. It doesn't exist. Right? Where your victimhood doesn't exist. Right? Where your enemies don't exist. But first you have to be willing to have your perception corrected. All right? It is not necessary that he understand how he can see it, so don't worry about how it works. Don't try to figure it out. The ego likes to figure stuff out. Right? That's how the ego gets back in the back door, as we say. Or as I say, anyway. All right, you're trying to figure out, how does that happen? Don't try to figure it out. Just be willing to have your perception changed. Because he says you shouldn't even try to do that. Right? It's just a distraction. For if he focuses on what he cannot understand, Right? So if you try to figure it out, right, you're just going to emphasize your helplessness. And then you're going to let sin tell him that his enemy must be himself. In other words, the ego got back in there. You can't even figure it out. You can't understand this. Right? That's because you're a simpleton. Right? He says, don't even bother trying to figure it out. Just believe me, it works. Just be willing to have your perception changed. Right? In other places he says, seek not to change the world. Right? Seek but to change your mind about the world. Right? Change your perception, or have it changed. Be willing that your perception be changed. Okay? So then he gets to the questions. But let him only ask himself these questions, which he must decide to have it done for him. So yeah, we have to ask ourselves these questions in order to have our perception changed. Okay? Believe me, it's not that formal after a while. So and here's the questions. Do I desire a world I rule instead of one that rules me? Do I desire a world where I am powerful instead of helpless? Do I desire a world in which I have no enemies and cannot sin? All right? I can't be separated from God. I can't have any enemies. Is that the kind of world I want? All right? And in that kind of world, I'm powerful. Because I realize there's nothing to compete against. There's nothing to defend against. There's only communication with the original source and the extension of everything, everywhere. All right? And then the fourth question. And do I want to see what I denied because it is the truth? All right, he's going to tell you that's the most important question. Do I want to see what I denied? Because it is the truth. And what is it that I denied? Right in the very beginning. I denied that I was a thought in the mind of God. I denied that I was the offspring of God. Right? I denied I was the Son of God. Right? My spirit is the offspring of God. That's what I denied. He says, so you want to see that? Do you want to encounter that? Because that's the truth. All right. Do I want to see what I denied because it is the truth? Okay. So he says, you may have already, paragraph 6, you may have already answered the first three questions, but not yet the last. For this one still seems fearful and unlike the others. Yet reason would assure you that they are all the same. We said this year would emphasize the sameness of things that are the same. This final question, which is indeed the last you need to decide, still seems to hold a threat the rest have lost for you. And this imagined difference attests to your belief that truth may be the enemy you yet may find. Here, then, would seem to be the last remaining hope of finding sin and not accepting power. Okay? He says there's something fearful to us in that final question. Do you want to see who you truly are? Right? Do you want to see what you've denied? Because it's the truth. All right? He says this final question is indeed the last you need to decide. That's the last thing you need to decide. I want to see. I want to see what I denied. I want to see myself. Okay? he says, the final question, which is indeed the last you need to decide, still seems to hold a threat that the other three have lost. The other three don't seem to be that threatening. All right, he says, but this last one still seems to hold a threat. Okay. And this imagined difference attests to your belief that the truth may be the enemy you yet may find. So the truth may be the enemy that's going to destroy you. That's why there's the hesitancy to decide that last question. You're still afraid of love. You're still afraid of who you really are. All right, that might be the enemy. It's going to destroy your individuality. All right? And Jesus knows this is a process, okay? But it's interesting to see these questions. All right? It's very interesting to see that last question. And just pose it to yourself honestly. There's no judgment involved. You know, you can feel the hesitancy. All right? But as Dr. Wapnick would always assure us, he says, look, nobody goes poof. All right? You don't disappear. You don't get vaporized or anything. All right? So here then, all right, because we think this might be the enemy, the truth might be the enemy. Here then would seem to be the last remaining hope of finding sin and not accepting power. All right. So we may still opt for the belief in separation. All right. So paragraph 7. Forget not that the choice of sin or truth, helplessness or power, is the choice of whether to attack or heal. For healing comes of power, and attack of helplessness. Whom you attack, you cannot want to heal. And whom you would have healed must be the one you chose to be protected from attack. And what is this decision but the choice whether to see him through the body's eyes or let him be revealed to you through vision? How this decision leads to its effect is not your problem. But what you want to see must be your choice. This is a course in cause and not effect. Right? So this is a course in the choices in the mind, the cause. Right? We're trying to get back to the cause. What is it that you choose? Right? And he says, forget not the choice of sin or truth. All right? Is the choice of whether to attack or heal. It's helplessness or power. All right? For healing comes of power, and attack of helplessness. Now, wonderful poetry, of course, wonderful metaphors. Healing is the healing of the mind. All right? And that comes with the power of joining with Jesus and the memory of who you are. The split mind is healed. Right? And so when we're still involved in the belief in separation, the mind is still split, and that's where we attack everything. All right? And we attack by, projecting guilt. They're the reason I'm this way. All that helplessness. He says, because of who you attack, you cannot want to heal. You can't do both things at the same time. And whom you would have healed must be the one you chose to protect from attack. And he says, and what is this decision? He says, what is this decision between healing and attacking and powerlessness and power? All right. He says, what is this? What is this decision but the choice whether to see the other through the body's eyes, through the ego's eyes, or let him be revealed to you through vision? All right? And that's what happens when we are willing to have our projections, our perceptions corrected. The other will be revealed to you. Whatever it is that we are projecting onto, the truth of that will be revealed to you by your choice. All right? And what is this decision but the choice of whether to see him through the body's eyes or let him be revealed to you through vision? And then he goes, how this decision leads to these effects, he says, not your problem. Don't worry about how it works. All right? You don't have to study the mechanics of it. All right? It works. All right? But what you want to see must be your choice. All right? So it has to be a choice. It has to be a choice in the mind. What is it that I want to see? This is because this is a course in cause, not effect. It's not about changing the world. Right? It's not about changing all these things that our senses report to us. Right? It's about changing the mind. Help me to see correctly. Okay? And it must be my choice. Right? Paragraph 8. Consider carefully your answer to the last question. All right? Consider carefully your answer to the last question you have left unanswered still. All right? Do I want to see what I denied? All right? And let your reason tell you that it must be answered and is answered in the other three. And then it will be clear to you, as you look on the effects of sin in any form, all you need do is simply ask yourself, is this what I would see? Do I want this? All right. Distilling it. All right. The wonderful alchemy of the mind. Bringing it down to whatever you're looking upon, however you're reacting to it. All right. Is this what I want to see? All right. Do I want this? Or do I want to see correctly? I'm not talking about changing the form. All right. I'm talking about changing my interpretation of the form. All right. And I'm willing to have that interpretation changed. And I still talk as if I'm doing it. All I'm doing is making the choice to align myself with that part of my mind that knows, that remembers, all right, and letting the truth be revealed to me. Okay? It's just a matter of being honest with yourself. What do I want? What is it that I want? In a lot of places, especially one place, Jesus says it a few times, that I know what you really want. All right, so do I want this? He says, I know what you really want. You want peace of mind. Right? You want that peace of mind that blossoms into the awareness of who you are, which gives you all the power. which gives you the power of interpreting things correctly. All right. So is this what I want to see? Do I want this? Paragraph 9, this is your one decision. This, the condition for what occurs. It is irrelevant to how it happens, but not to why. You have control of this. And if you choose to see a world without an enemy, in which you are not helpless, the means to see it will be given you. All right, very succinct statement. All right. If you choose to see a world without an enemy, right? If you choose to see a world in which you're not helpless, right? The means to see it will be given you. All right? This is it depends on your decision. All right? This is your one decision. The condition for what occurs. And once again, he tells us it's irrelevant to how it happens. All right? It's irrelevant how it happens. But what is relevant is why it happens. All of a sudden it changes. I'm no longer really pissed off at this guy. All right? I'm no longer, I no longer bristle when I see him at first. You don't have to worry. You don't have to wonder, how did that change? He says the reason is, why did it change? It changed because I wanted to see correctly. Right? You have control of this. Right? And he emphasizes the word have. You have control of this. And if you choose to see a world without an enemy, in which you are not helpless, the means to see it will be given you. I mean, that's the constant message of this course. What is it that you want? And if you want to see through the eyes of peace, the means to see that way will be given you. Paragraph 10, why is the final question so important? Reason will tell you why. It is the same as are the other three, except in time. The others are decisions that can be made and then unmade and made again. But truth is constant and implies a state where vacillations are impossible. You can desire a world you rule that rules you not, and then change your mind. Right? You can desire to exchange your helplessness for power and lose the same desire as a little glint of sin attracts you. And you can want to see a sinless world and let an enemy tempt you to use the body's eyes to change what you desire. All right? Beautifully written, but when you boil it down, that's exactly my experience in the world. All right? You have this dedication to see the world without an enemy, and you're really into it, and then all of a sudden you slide back in. Something comes along, right? And you're sure this other person is guilty of something. All right, so there's vacillations. All right. He says you can desire to exchange your helplessness for power and then lose the same desire as the little glint of sin attracts you. Right? As the old saying goes, the mind is willing, but the flesh is weak. All right, Jesus is telling you, I know. He says, but that last question, he says, it's the concept of time that's different. All right, do I want to see the truth? The truth is constant. Do I want to see something in a space where there are no vacillations? It's constant. So do you want to enter that space? Do you want to see what you denied because it is the truth? He says the truth is constant and it implies a state where vacillations are impossible. All right? So paragraph 11. In content, all the questions are the same. For each one asks if you are willing to exchange the world of sin for what the Holy Spirit sees, since it is this the world of sin denies. And therefore, those who look on sin are seeing the denial of the real world. Yet the last question adds the wish for constancy in your desire to see the real world. So the desire becomes the only one you can have. By answering the final question yes, you add sincerity to the decisions you have already made to all the rest. For only then have you renounced the option to change your mind again. When it is this you do not want, the rest are wholly answered. So when we no longer want the option to change my mind, when I am sure that what I want is to see who I truly am, what I want is I want to see what I denied because it is the truth. That solidifies the decision. When it is this you do not want, the rest are wholly answered. Right? So when I denounce the options, I no longer want the option to change my mind. All right? Paragraph 12. Why do you think you are unsure the others have been answered? Could it be necessary that they have been asked so often? Could it be necessary they be asked so often if they had? Until the last decision has been made, the answer is both yes and no. For you have answered yes without perceiving that yes must mean not no. Right? No one decides against his happiness, but he may do so if he does not know what he does. For he does not see he does. And if he sees his happiness as ever-changing, now this, now that, now an elusive shadow attached to nothing, he does decide against it. All right? So he says, why do you think you're unsure that the others have been answered? All right? Because of the vacillation. He says, could it be because they've been asked so many times? Right? And then you go back. All right? It's because of the vacillation. All right? He says, and it's because you didn't realize that by saying yes to these questions, he says you didn't realize that it has to mean not no. All right? It's one of those places where you have to slow down. You have to stop and think, what is he talking about? All right? So he says to answer those questions correctly, you have to realize that they mean not no. All right? And no is the belief in separation. The no is the no, I'm not the Son of God. I'm not connected to God. No. And that is the belief in separation. So he says, answering those questions with conviction means not no. Means no, not the thought of separation. Right? I don't want that anymore. Right? I don't want the no. Right? The no is no, I'm not connected to God. So I don't want that anymore. So that's what he means by not know. Right? For you have answered yes, you've answered yes to all those questions, without perceiving that yes must mean not no. I don't want the thought of separation. I don't want separation anymore. No one decides against his happiness, but he may do so if he does not see that he does. All right? He says you don't even realize you're deciding against your own happiness here in this condition, in this world. Right? And if he sees that his happiness is ever changing, now it's this, now it's that, and now it's an elusive shadow attached to nothing, he does decide against it. All right? So we're always jumping around from one thing to another. Oh, this is it, this is it, this is it. He says you don't realize you've already decided against your happiness. Paragraph 13, elusive happiness, or happiness in changing form that shifts with time and place, is an illusion that has no meaning. All right? So elusive happiness is an illusion that has no meaning. Happiness must be constant, because it is attained by giving up the wish for the inconstant. Happiness is constant because we've given up the wish for separation, which is inconstant. It's ever-changing. All right. Joy cannot be perceived except through constant vision. And constant vision can be given only those who wish for constancy. The power of God's Son, the power of the Son of God's desire remains the proof that he is wrong who sees himself as helpless. Desire what you want, and you will look on it and think it real. No thought but has the power to release or kill, and none can leave the thinker's mind or leave him unaffected. Powerful statements, right? Thoughts do not leave your mind, and they do not leave you unaffected. We're affected by every thought. Right? There was a book published way back when. I don't recall the exact title. It might have been Stress and Distress, or Ease and Dis-ease. Something like that, but the author was Hans Selye, S-E-L-Y-E, Hans Selye. And that's where I first ran into the concept of every thought has an effect, right? And we have so many thoughts here in form. We have so many thoughts during the course of the day, and I believe it was Deepak Chopra said the problem is, thousands of those thoughts are the same ones we had yesterday, so it sets up patterns. All right? It sets up reaction patterns in the body. All right, but that's going off on a tangent. What Jesus is telling us, he says, desire what it is that you want. Do I want the chaos or do I want the oneness? Do I want this world of separation, or do I want to see who I really am? All right. And he says, and you'll look on what you want, and you will think it real. So if I want the separation, he says, there you go. You're going to think it's real. All right. But when you come inside and you start asking to have your perceptions changed, you will see differently, and you'll think that's what's real, and you'll know that that's what's real. All right? He says, so no thought has the power to release or to kill. So every thought has the power to release us from the thought of separation, or to trap us in the thought of separation until we release ourselves. And he says it very powerfully, to release or kill. When he's talking about killing, is we think we killed the oneness. We think we killed God and took on his power. Right? He says, so every thought has the power to release or kill. Right? We can release our brother or kill him. All right? You know, we can figuratively kill the brother. All right? You can literally do that, but that's really harsh. All right? But even, you know, the words can kill him. Thoughts can kill. This is what he's saying. Thoughts can kill. Or they can release. All right? I want my thoughts to help me see correctly. All right? They can release the brother. They can release you automatically at the same time. And he says, and none of these thoughts do not leave the thinker's mind. They don't leave the thinker's mind, and they don't leave you unaffected. Right? And after a while, with practice, you'll feel it. You'll realize, oh, that thought really just jerked me into that icky land of bedlam, into the ego thought system. You know, when I was younger, you know, the comedians that were popular just make fun of everybody, make fun of everything. And I thought that was cool. I thought that was it, you know. Nowadays, I can't. I don't like to hear that. It's not funny, in my opinion. All right, and even if I have a thought like that, all right, because in my day I could be very quick and sarcastic, all right, and even if I have a thought like that these days, I realize, no, that's pulling me in a direction I do not want to go. So it becomes my choice. You see how it works? It's a choice. I want to say no. I do not want that. Not no. All right, I want my thoughts to be peaceful. All right? And he says, and those thoughts don't leave your mind, and they don't leave you unaffected. In other words, they have an effect. All right? The power of the mind. Do I want to see what I denied? Because it is the truth. All right? And the truth is constant. The last unanswered question. Okay. Thank you for being here. Thank you for helping me on my journey without a distance. All right, and I will encounter you in the next session. Thank you all. Bye now.